Hello and welcome to the podcast Justice Unbound, about women, religion, and the State of Israel. In this podcast, we take you behind the closed doors of Israeli rabbinic courts, where the state applies religious laws to decide the fate of all Jewish people, men, women, and children. Justice Unbound is written and produced by the Center for Women's Justice, CWJ, and I'm your host, Rivkah. Today, we are into Mamzerim Part 2, where we promise to talk more about the legal aspects of mamzerut in Israel. If you haven't listened to the last episode, that's number 13, please go back and listen because it will help you understand what we are talking about today. I'm going to start out with a short story of a woman who had a great impact on me. Many years ago, a woman got up and spoke at a retreat that I was attending at Ramat Rachel in Jerusalem. All of us there were activists and in various organizations, and we were all associated with IKAR Coalition, the International Coalition for Agunot. We got together at Ramat Rachel to plan future activities. This woman, who was kind of a loner and ran a one-woman organization that helped Agunot, stood up and said the following: I was the first Agunah in Israel. I think she meant she was the first famous or well-known Agunah, but she called herself the first Agunah. My husband would not, under any circumstances, give me a get. This went on for over 20 years. He said, I will not let you be with another man and have a child with someone else. I'll let you free when you are not able to have children anymore. And he did so. The woman continued to say, I got pregnant at some point from another man and I had an abortion. That baby was supposed to be 21 years old these days. And she continued to say, I aborted the fetus because I didn't want to give birth to a child who would be thought of as a mamzer. The baby says to me today, you shouldn't have aborted me. You should have brought me into the world. Those words of hers made a huge impression on me, and that was basically how I was introduced to the topic of mamzerut. Mind you, that story has nothing to do with the legal side of mamzerut in Israel, which is the topic of this episode. It could have happened anywhere in the world. Stories like this of women aborting babies because of the fear of them being thought of as mamzerim happen probably all over the world and not just in Israel. But it's all the more complicated when the state gets into our lives, and I do want to have a closer look at what goes on in Israel. We've already mentioned last episode that there is a list that the rabbinate holds of mamzerim. Today, I would like to talk about two laws that have to do with mamzerut and specifically have to do with children. It's not clear at all if these laws were written to try and save children and to keep them from being banned by the rabbinate as mamzerim, or if these laws are to save the Jewish people from being so-called contaminated by the mamzerim and to keep these banned children out of the community. The whole thing, as you will see, is very vague. I'm about to explain, but we'll just say that it sounds like these two laws are helping children, but maybe the price that they are being made to pay is way too high, and we are not really saving them, but hurting them further. So the first law is Clause 22 of the Population Registry Law from 1965. That relates to registering the baby's father, and it makes way for a lie. The law basically says that a man shall not be registered as the father of the child of a woman who had been married to another man within 300 days before the birth, unless by ruling of a court. That is more or less based on the idea, or at least it's on the same line as the idea, that the child's father is, should be, will be, the husband or ex-husband no matter what. We mentioned the religious ruling of Rov Be'ilot Achar Baal. Most of women's cohabitions are attributed to the husband. And this law takes it further. It says that the state won't register a man's name as the father when the math of the pregnancy works out to make the child a mamzer. Now, the halakha never said anything about registration, so why not keep registration according to what the parents say and allow the religious law to make its own white lies? Why does the formal state registration of the father have to be in accordance with the religious lie? Why ruin the child's life and deprive him of a father? The second law is an amendment from 2008 to the Genetic Information Law from 2000, and it orders that no court can allow genetic tests on a minor without the opinion of the president of the Grand Rabbinical Court. Needless to say, they will basically not allow any testing if it may in any way suggest that the child is a mamzer. Both rulings strengthen the presumption that the father is the ex-husband and that this new reality cannot be challenged in any way, even if it comes to help the child. Both laws come to strengthen a lie that we are telling the child, that his biological father is not his father. I'm going to suggest that for more information, the listeners may want to look at Ruth Halperin Katari's article called That Which is Crooked Cannot Be Made Straight, Mamzerim in the Israeli Legal System. The article was published in the book we mentioned last episode, Mamzerim, Labeled and Erased. I'm going to spell out the problem after Susan and I have been dealing with this for ages and after seeing all sorts and types of real-life cases. The idea of lying to the child and to the world about the identity of the father was probably the perfect solution in the past. The white lie that the halakha promoted was good for all. It solved the problem of the mother, the husband, the adulterer, and the baby, and even the rest of the family. Everyone wanted peace and quiet, no disruption of the family and social order. Life goes on as usual with a father fathering a child who may not have been his biological father. Who cares? But today, a woman that had a child from someone else may be already separated from her husband and living with the new man. Maybe this new man is raising not only his biological child, but all her children with her, even those from a former husband who hasn't yet given her a divorce. This child will not be socially stigmatized. Living with his father is his norm. Why lie to the child? Does any good come out of this fiction, trying to say that his real father is her husband or ex-husband? Telling a child that his father is someone other than the parent that is raising him just makes things more complicated. The child grows up not understanding why the man registered as his father isn't interested in him, maybe even hates him. This man may be able to threaten the child's mother. He may have rights over the child, like making medical decisions over him. As one woman said to me, "This child that's registered on my husband's name is just a piece of meat for him. I'm afraid to let her in the street alone. He may hurt her." This so-called father will never take interest in the child, and this boy or girl may never receive child support or inheritance from anybody. The courts who understand the lie and are promoting it will not enforce child support on a man who is not the biological father. And the biological father may just disappear from the child's life and flee from taking any responsibility over the child. The ex-husband who finds himself fathering a child not his will write a will and leave this child that's not his but is registered as his out of his will. It really gets worse because the state is cooperating with the rabbinate, and whilst they think they are saving the child from being stigmatized as a mamzer, they may be just making things far worse for the child. The child grows up not understanding what's going on with his registration, and when he gets to the point where he wants to register to get married, the rabbis may discover the whole issue. In fact, the best way for him to save himself would be for the mother to tell him that he is potentially a mamzer, and when he speaks to the registrar, he should not mention that the man written as his father is not his biological father. It's a big mess, and it's all in the name of a Jewish law ruling that the mamzer is banned from society and never allowed to marry except another mamzer or a convert, and that this awful stigma continues for next generations. It's more easily solved in all other countries where the state and church don't cooperate. In America, for instance, This child would not be lied to, would know who his father is, and at some point he would see a rabbi, or maybe not, and when he or she goes to get married, the rabbi would be able to say that he may be the child of the ex-husband, and therefore he's not prohibited from marrying and is not a mamzer. This child may never want to marry, or may never see an Orthodox rabbi anyway. In the meantime, he gets a father that is his. I know it's really complicated. In order to fully understand this issue, I will tell a typical story of a woman who I've been following and helping for many years. This woman was an agunah for some years. She met a new guy, and they were together before she was divorced. This new guy was actually violent towards her and was sent to jail on that account. I want to make it clear that I work with clients that have problems. They don't have perfect lives. I don't judge them. I just try to help them and let them have the best life they can. Anyway, when in jail, she discovered that she was pregnant from her boyfriend. He was the only one with her at that time. In the meantime, she got a divorce from her husband and was free to continue being with her boyfriend. The boyfriend begged her from jail to keep the baby and promised he would marry her as soon as he got out. She did not abort the child. She wanted the baby and wanted the relationship with this man, even though he was violent towards her. He had a good job and he had money. She thought she was looking towards a better future. After he got out of jail, they got together again until the birth of the baby. After she had the baby, the Department of Interior would not register the boyfriend as the father of the child because the baby was born about 7 months after the divorce, meaning that the fetus was conceived a few months before she was divorced. The state put her ex-husband's name on the child's birth certificate. What happened later was so typical, and I know many stories of the sort. The boyfriend just simply stepped out of her life, claiming he wouldn't have anything to do with the baby that was a mamzer. Oh my God, I have heard so many stories like this. I'm sorry to say this, but men just tend to disappear when things are bad. Maybe because they can. The mother of the child, stigmatized, could never just walk off. She's always there, and she is the one to fight it out. The state was on the boyfriend's side, letting him go. No court would rule that the boyfriend was the father. They would not allow genetic testing, and certainly would not listen to the woman saying it was his child. In fact, even in cases where the man himself would claim in court to be the father, the court would rule against him, because the state wants to push the child on the former husband. She had no money, 3 children at this point, no husband, and no child support for her baby. Her ex-husband, who was registered as the father on the birth certificate, told people that the baby was not his and that this child was a mamzer. She had to move to a new place where people didn't know her. Her family wouldn't hear from the whole thing. She fought the courts for years to try and get child support from the boyfriend. As we said already, he had a lot of money, but with no success. The child was doomed. She would tell him over the years different lies, that his father was far away, that he got sick and died, and the boy never understood why the other man, the father of his older brothers, was registered as his father, but would never see him at visitations or buy him presents. Her ex-husband was in the lives of his brothers, but rejected him. Again, at the civil court, all knew that the whole story was a lie, but they did nothing to help provide child support from neither of the men. The biological father ended up dying childless, and his siblings, instead of his only son, inherited all his money and his apartment. The son got nothing and will get nothing from the so-called father, the ex-husband, that the state assigned to him. In any case, I'm sure that this child will never be allowed to marry in Israel. So what was the point of all this? In a different case brought to court, a woman had a baby from a man that was not her husband at the time, and the child was registered on the ex-husband's name, even though his biological father was raising him. The couple later on separated, that is, the new couple separated, and the mother turned against the biological father of the child, not allowing him any rights of visitation. What could he do now? He was nothing in the eyes of the law, all in the name of pushing this child onto an ex-husband so as to promote the fiction that he was born from the husband. Our suggestion at CWJ is to separate the civil father from the religious father. The idea is to have the religious courts say that the ex-husband is the father if they like, in order to allow the child to marry later on and to be thought of as a kosher Jew, but have the civil courts rule who the registered father is, the biological father or the one that all has agreed that he is the father should be the one to have rights and responsibility over the child. The stories today were painful. We started this episode by telling of a woman who aborted a child. I know of many women who aborted children so as not to have them thought of as mamzerim. I know of women who are sorry that they kept a pregnancy that involved their life now being messed up. Children get lied to and live their lives without a father figure because of this. Mothers who are afraid that their children are on the blacklist or will be prohibited from marrying later on in life go from rabbi to rabbi and spend money for attorneys to tell them that they have no solution except to stay away from the rabbinate. These children don't deserve all this. They deserve better, and we all deserve a more moral state that allows all people the freedom of marrying. We also deserve our religion to be in line with our moral beliefs. Are there ways out of this? Yes. It is almost always possible to prove that the child is not necessarily a mamzer, but it may take years, even decades. I've met many rabbis who claim to have solved all cases brought before them, but that is worth nothing, because in Israel, you don't just go to your rabbi. It all has to be brought before the legal Beit Din. If you bring it up in the religious court, it will get documented, and if not solved, you will have caused damage to your child forever. Does a mother want to raise the issue? When does she bring it up? Does a youngster tell their potential partner about it? What if a person discovers that their father is someone else than the one who raised them, and they realize in the middle of their life that they and their offsprings are all mamzerim? Is it good enough to tell them that there is a way out if you would just approach a rabbi? Most would keep this awful secret to themselves, living the rest of their lives in pain. There should be a general way out of the whole thing. No more. Many rabbis could choose to ignore all this. They could choose to say, we can't ever be sure if someone is a mamzer, and therefore we will not listen to any witnesses about this. And no one is a mamzer in this generation. Why don't they say that? There are halachic ways around it, even if one is absolutely a mamzer. But the rabbis aren't telling us about these solutions. They don't want to look for a general solution. They'd rather try and solve it case by case. It's all a question of power. The idea that deciding who is kosher and who is not is in their hands is so empowering for the rabbis in the rabbinate that they will never give it up. This is power not only over women, men, and children, but power over a state. It's power telling the Jews of the state of Israel that we cannot have civil marriage in Israel, and that there cannot be civil divorce, and that major decisions about personal status must be made in accordance with the Jewish law, and only the rabbis have the understanding of and the power to decide on it. Who would give up such power? But why does the state that seems to be liberal and democratic succumb to such fanatic ideas, ostracizing a child and not allowing him or her and all their offspring to ever marry in the Jewish community? I have no good answer for that, and I will leave it that way. Thank you for listening to CWJ's podcast, Justice Unbound, Women, Religion, and the State of Israel. This podcast was produced thanks to the generous support of the Gimprich Family Foundation. Thank you, Susan Weiss and Rachel Stomel, for all your help. I am Rivkah Lubitch. Bye.